On the evening of December 9, 1965, thousands of people across 6 states and part of Canada watched something streak across the sky and fall toward the ground. In one small Pennsylvania town, witnesses said it didn't burn up in the atmosphere. It landed. Within hours, the U.S. Army had sealed off the woods. Local reporters were turned away at gunpoint. By the next morning, officials said there was nothing there at all. 60 years later, no one, not the witnesses, not the Army, not NASA, agrees on what fell into these woods. Kecksburg was, and still is, a tiny, unincorporated community about 30 miles southeast of Pittsburgh. In 1965, it was the kind of place where nothing ever happened. That changed a little before 5 in the afternoon, when a bright fireball tore across the sky in full view of thousands of people. It was seen from Michigan to New York and across the border in Ontario, Canada. Pilots, police officers, and ordinary residents all reported the same object moving through the sky at the same time. Airline pilots in the region reported the same flash of orange fire. On the ground, some witnesses described a shockwave and a sound like a sonic boom. As it moved southeast, burning debris reportedly fell across Ohio and western Pennsylvania, sparking several small brush fires along the way. The next morning, the local Greensburg Tribune-Review ran the story on its front page. The Associated Press picked it up soon after. Its vapor trail reportedly stayed visible for more than 20 minutes, long enough for several bystanders to actually film it. A local woman, Frances Kalp, called the radio station in nearby Greensburg to report that her son had seen the object come down in the woods behind their home, trailing blue smoke. Within the hour, state police, volunteer firefighters, and local residents converged on the site. So did the military. Witnesses say armed soldiers arrived and sealed off the wooded area, turning back both curious neighbors and the reporters who'd started to show up. Later that night, several residents reported seeing a flatbed truck leave the area under military escort, carrying something large covered by a tarp. That same night, Project Blue Book, the Air Force's official UFO investigation program, opened a case file. A declassified memo confirms investigators were sent to the area within hours. By the next day, the official statement was simple. Nothing had been recovered from the woods at all. One reporter who arrived that night counted nearly 24 military personnel on the scene. When he asked the nearest soldier what was going on, the answer he got back was one word: nothing. Multiple witnesses who reached the site before the military described the same basic shape: a bronze, acorn-like object, roughly the size of a small car, with a band of unfamiliar markings running around its base. No photograph of the actual object has ever surfaced publicly. What exists today is a replica, built from witness descriptions and still on display in the town. What makes the case unusual isn't any one account. It's how consistent the details were across witnesses who didn't know each other. By the time most reporters were allowed near the site, whatever had been there was gone. One of the closest witnesses was a young volunteer firefighter named Jim Romansky. He stood just a few feet from the object, close enough, he said, that a person could have stood up inside it. Romansky, who worked for years as a machinist, later said the object looked like it had been formed from liquid metal poured into a mold, smooth, without a single rivet or seam. At the base of the object, he described a band of unfamiliar symbols, not letters he recognized from any language he knew. Another local resident, Bill Boulabush, said he reached the site first and found a 10-foot object that glowed and sparked in the dark. It frightened him enough that he ran home the moment he heard other people approaching. Romansky later described something else, men in what he called moon suits, arriving separately and carrying a small metal box down into the ravine, a detail that has never been explained by any official account. Romansky wasn't alone. By his own account, 8 or 9 volunteer firefighters examined the object together before military personnel arrived and took over the site completely. One of the first people on the scene that night was John Murphy, a news director at local radio station WHJB. He interviewed witnesses and reportedly took photographs of the object before the military arrived. According to his former wife, most of his film was confiscated by military personnel that same night. Only one roll reportedly survived. Weeks later, Murphy produced a documentary about what he'd seen, called Object in the Woods. Before it aired, station staff say 2 unidentified men visited his office and asked to speak with him privately. The documentary aired about a week later in a version Murphy himself described as censored. In February of 1969, while on vacation in California, John Murphy was struck and killed by a car in a hit and run. The driver was never identified. His notebooks, tapes, and remaining photographs from that night were never recovered. Over the following decades, the official explanation shifted more than once. The Air Force's initial explanation was a meteor, though astronomers who studied the trajectory disagreed about exactly where, if anywhere, it actually came down. In 2005, NASA told a reporter that its own experts had examined recovered fragments decades earlier and concluded the object was debris from a Soviet satellite called Kosmos 96. But NASA also admitted the records documenting that conclusion had been lost since 1987. A later U.S. Space Command review complicated that explanation further, concluding Kosmos 96 had actually re-entered over Canada some 13 hours before the Fireball people saw that evening. A UFO researcher eventually sued NASA to force the release of its files. The search that followed turned up no smoking gun document, only more missing paperwork and unanswered questions. Beyond the official explanations, researchers and witnesses have proposed a few other theories over the years. None of them are proven. All of them remain part of the case's public record. One theory raised by researchers in 2015 suggests the object may have been a GE Mark II re-entry vehicle, a real, once classified capsule design used in early U.S. reconnaissance satellites. When shown a photograph of one, Romansky himself said it didn't look quite like what he remembered. A more speculative theory ties the object to post-war rumors surrounding an alleged secret German wartime program. It's a claim with no verified documentation behind it, but it persists in some corners of the case's folklore regardless. To be fair to the official explanation, the scientific case against a crash landing deserves equal weight. In 1967, astronomers Vondel Chamberlain and David Krauss published a detailed analysis of the fireball's trajectory in the Journal of the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada. Their conclusion supported the meteor explanation. Some of the physical evidence didn't hold up either. Silvery debris recovered in Michigan, initially treated as fragments of the object, was later identified as aluminum chaff, a material used to jam radar, not anything extraterrestrial. Some published trajectory analyses place the fireball's actual path well to the northwest near the shore of Lake Erie, suggesting that what people in Kecksburg saw disappear behind the tree line may have simply been distance and perspective, not an object actually touching down in their woods. The trajectory science is solid. What it doesn't explain is why the military response looked the way witnesses say it did, or what happened to John Murphy 4 years later. The case took an unexpected turn in 1990, when a new witness came forward claiming to have been part of the military team sent in to retrieve the object that night. His account has never been independently verified, but it added fuel to a case researchers had already spent decades trying to close out. In 2005, the Sci-Fi Channel funded a legal effort to force NASA to release whatever records it still held on the case. The lawsuit was settled in 2007. NASA released what records it had, but investigators found key files missing and no single document that resolved the case one way or the other. Today, Kecksburg holds an annual UFO festival every summer, drawing visitors from across the country to the small town where it all supposedly happened. In the years since, the case has been featured on Unsolved Mysteries and several other national documentary programs, keeping it in public memory long after the woods themselves went quiet. The woods themselves look much like they did 60 years ago, quiet, ordinary, and giving up nothing. As one longtime local put it decades later, roughly half the town believes something extraordinary happened that night. The other half doesn't. Both sides still live on the same streets. Jim Romansky died on August 18, 2021, at the age of 76. In more than 50 years of telling his story, witnesses who knew him say his account never changed. No official object has ever been produced. No single explanation has ever been consistently confirmed. 60 years on, the Kecksburg case remains exactly where it started, unresolved. This has been the full case file. All sources and further reading are linked in the description below.